Alok Kumar, and I'm going to talk about the unfolding the mysteries of nature for moksha. So I'll explain what moksha is and how we can achieve through science. I used to teach in the State University of New York, and I'm retired now. And I have written these 4 books. The 3 books on the left, these are the same books. One is published from India, another is published from America, and the third one is published from Switzerland. It's the identical books, but published in with 3 different publishers. And that's my latest book, Ancient Hindu Science. Now, it's a dilemma for most religions that how do you explain the religion or its intricacies in a very short time? Because most people don't have time to read books and contemplate about it. So that issue came in 11th century. And the story starts from Mahmud Ghaznavi. Those who know the history of India, they know that the Islamic rule in India started from Mahmud Ghaznavi. He is also known as Mahmud Ghazni. And he came and he burned libraries and he, looted temples. But every cloud has a silver lining. What he did was he brought with himself 2 scholars to chronicle his conquest. And both scholars wrote extensively about their experiences in India. So today I'm going to talk one of the 2 scholars, Al-Biruni, which some of you may be aware of. Most of the books in 11th century, in India, they were burned, but since he wrote the book, which is basically representing Islam, so it survived. And today, it is a masterpiece for Indian history. In fact, the Indology scholars rely on this book extensively because he explained about Hindu religion and Hindu ways of living in that book. It's commonly available. Is I think available on the internet, a free copy if anybody is interested. And he raised this issue that how do we explain different religions? And he tried to explain it himself. He answered it. For example, for Islam, he said, if you believe in this catchphrase that there is no God but God, Muhammad is his prophet, which in Arabic, which is more common among the Muslims, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, that there is only one God and Muhammad is his prophet. So basically, the teachings of Prophet Muhammad is the way to achieve God. That's the basic of Islam or the catchphrase of Islam. For Christianity, he said, Trinity is the catchphrase for Christianity. And Trinity means basically is God in 3 equal divine parts. God the Father, which is, what we call no human form can be attached to it. Then God the Son, where God in human form, and and the Holy Spirit, which means basically the soul or Atman in India or in the Hindu religion. So these three were unmanifested form of God, which is the Father, then manifested form of God, which is the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That defines Christianity, and I'm sure, I would love to know if there is somebody here who has some background in Christianity, if later on they can explain if I'm saying the right thing or not. Now, for Judaism, it is Sabbath, basically a day of rest, which starts from uh, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, because it's the seventh day when God, after creating the creation, took rest. So Jewish people don't work on that day. So this is how he defined these three religions. The fourth one, how do we define Hinduism? According to him, uh, the catchphrase is reincarnation or metempsychosis or transmigration of soul, which is basically the same thing. And that's the catchphrase for Hindu religion, means that you existed before this life and you will exist after this life. So the transmigration of soul, that's central to Hinduism, where basically based on our action in this life, we are born in the next life. And human body, it has two parts. One is body, another is soul. Body is like clothes, which we discard and we are a new set of clothes, while soul, which is Atman, that is eternal, that does not die. So when we die, the soul is not dying, it's the physical body that is dying. And in our next life, based on our action in this life, we are born, assume a new form. That's central to Hinduism. Now, this concept is also accepted in Buddhism, Sikhism, Jainism, and even in Taoism. And scientists have studied, in several countries. And the most popular work is by this scientist, Professor Stevens, in University of Virginia, where he studied 3,000 cases of reincarnation. And based on that, he concluded that reincarnation is a distinct possibility. However, as yet, it is not accepted in science. So in science, we don't believe in reincarnation, but that's central to Hinduism. Now, there are many famous philosophers or many famous people from the Western world who believed in reincarnations. Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Plotinus, Apollonius of Tyana, Voltaire from France, Goethe from Germany, Jung from, I think, Austria, and Thoreau from America, Emerson from America, Benjamin Franklin, Henry Ford, and so on. The list is so long that it would be not proper to name all those people. But many founding fathers in America, like, for example, John Adams, the second president in America, he has written about Hinduism, and he tried to defend Hinduism. All those things, large number of people, they are not aware because you don't see those things in popular books. So that's now interesting thing is many of these people, like Pythagoras, the belief is that he went to India. Plotinus, it is a established fact that he tried to visit India but did not succeed. Apollonius of Tyre, he lived in India. Voltaire went to India. Goethe, he tried to go to India, but his health did not allow him to. Jung went to India. Thoreau has written about India very extensively. Emerson has written about India, and so on. So most of these people have some connection with, India. Again, uh, it's not a very common knowledge, but if you pick up history books, it is very easy to find that information. And as I mentioned earlier, still reincarnation is not considered to be a scientific reality. Let me give you an example of Benjamin Franklin, who wrote his epitaph when he was only 22 years old. And it reads, "The body of Benjamin Franklin, printer, like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here. Food for worms, but the work shall not be lost, for it will appear once more in a new and more elegant edition, revised and corrected by the author." So Benjamin Franklin has written about reincarnation many times in many places. And he was a true believer of that. Now, the issue is, what is moksha? Well, if you can come out of this cycle of birth and death and merge with the divine being, then you achieve moksha. And it is this ultimate goal for all Hindus to achieve moksha, and means come out of this cycle of birth and death. Now, how can you achieve it? So Swami Vivekananda, which I'm sure some of you must be aware of this person, the founder of Vedanta Society in America, who came some more than 100 years ago and propagated Hinduism, gave a famous lecture in Chicago, and lived very close to the place I live in New York for some time, and gave lectures there. And according to him, you will be perfect without reaching a single religious book. You will be perfect means you will achieve moksha without ever going to a church or temple. This is something I think uh, people from other background, they may find it interesting that one can achieve this perfection without ever going to a temple or a church. Our yogas are fitted to make man perfect, even without the help of the others. Means there are 4 yogas, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raj Yoga, and Gyan Yoga. So you can follow any of these yogas and you can achieve that perfection. And means you can achieve moksha. And that's what Swami Vivekananda shared. Now, what about the scriptures? Uh, Hindu scriptures, again and again, in a variety of places, they support reincarnation theory and moksha theory. So, like, for example, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling to Arjuna that you and I had many births before this, but only I know, you do not. And then this is quite famous that as a man casting off worn off garments and takes on new ones, so does the dweller in the body casting off worn out bodies and enter others that are new. So basically, like we change our clothes, the same way soul changes our body. That's what the Hindu beliefs are. And just like reincarnation, it is not accepted in science. Moksha at this stage is not accepted in science. Now, talking about, I mentioned a few minutes ago that Pythagoras, perhaps went to India and learned the theory of reincarnation. By the way, I have written several articles about that in the past, but I'm not the first one. Vivekananda said that in 1895, that Pythagoras was the first Greek who taught the doctrine of transmigration of soul among the Greeks, and he learned it from India. By the way, if you read the historical documents, there are a very large number of documents in the Western literature saying that Pythagoras went to India. Now, Apollonius of Tyana, let me share how even the gods, they are born and they die. Apollonius was a very famous person in the Roman Empire, and he was worshipped along with Jesus the Christ at one time. He was that famous. And he wrote, he said that I did not sacrifice, I don't touch blood even on the altar, since that was the doctrines of Pythagoras. It was the doctrine of the naked philosophers of Egypt and the wise men of India, from whom Pythagoras and his sect derived. So in first century AD, people were talking about, as I mentioned, that Pythagoras went to India. And by the way, Apollonius of Tyana is not the only one. There are a very large number of Western philosophers who have written about that. Now, in another place, he writes that Pythagoras was anticipated by the Indians, last not for brief time, but for an endless and incalculable period. This is something very important, that even at the beginning of the Christian era, Western scholars were saying that Indian civilization is very, very old, ancient, while the Greek philosophy is recent. By the way, when we talk about Greek philosophy, Pythagoras is among the first few. Again, coming back to Vivekananda, he's trying to explain Jnana Yoga, which is for the strong, and it is for those people who are rational. Because as he says, it is for those who are neither mystical nor devotional, but rational. As the bhakti yogi works his way to complete oneness with the Supreme Being through love and devotion, Gyan Yogi forces his way to realization of God by the power of pure reason. So reasoning is central for achieving moksha in Gyan Yoga. And once you do that, then you must be prepared to throw away all your old idols, all old beliefs and superstitions, all desire for this world or another, and be determined only to find its freedom. So here he is talking about being rational and being learn things through reasoning, and that's where the science comes. Because uh, in moksha, you have to rely on reasoning, and that's when we talk about science, it is based on experience, intuition, and reasoning. But the role of experience and reasoning is quite well publicized, but the role of intuition is largely not so well, popularized, not so well talked about. Although most of the biggest discoveries or inventions in science have come through intuition. Now, let me talk about a little bit about this reasoning here. Uh, why do we think about God? Why do we think about the Creator? We think about it because we are interacting with the creation. We are surrounded, we are a part of this creation. And when we, become overwhelmed with the beauty of this creation, we wonder who created it. So a study of the creation is central to these to learn about the creator. That's where under Gyan Yoga, and that's part of the reason Einstein he wrote an article in the New York Times Magazine in 1930. He wrote that a contemporary has said, not unjustly, that in this materialistic age of ours, the serious scientific workers are the only profoundly religious people. So he's basically saying that science is a tool to learn about the creator. That's something, again, when we think about science, we think science and religion are in conflict with each other. That's not really true. A large number of scientists, they are, uh, you know, highly religious people, like Newton, like Einstein, and many, many others. So this conflict of science and religion, that's overblown thing, that's not really true. Now, let me talk about, now the Indian scriptures. Aryabhata, he was the person who wrote a book on mathematics, astronomy, and physics. That book is called Aryabhatiya. And in this book, he defined that the earth is circular, spherical, and he even assigned motion to the earth. And we are talking about 5th century. In the Western world, when we talk about the heliocentrism, we say that it came with Copernicus, but this Aryabhata's book did assign motion to the earth, and many scholars believe that he defined heliocentrism. which I have talked about in my book. Now, the most important thing is, according to him, if you can master astronomy, mathematics, and and physics, you can achieve God. That's what he has written in his book Aryabhatiya. So basically, science was a tool to achieve moksha. That's what Hindus believed, just like Einstein in the modern age. Now, in Agni Purana, which is again a sacred book of the Hindus, according to that, if you become good in medicine, you'll achieve moksha. So, becoming an expert, in medicine was a tool to achieve moksha. And so, not only medicine, not only astronomy or mathematics and so on, even dance, uh, music, these were the tools to achieve moksha. And that's the reason science and fine arts were bound to flourish in India. And that indeed happened in India. Now, I'm going to, um, conclude because I want to have a long discussion about it because this is the topic, commonly talked about among the Hindus. So I want to hear what other people say. I want to, talk about the Chandogya Upanishad, Upanishad, where Narada, famous rishi, he wanted to learn, ways to achieve moksha, means the ultimate truth. So he went to another, realized person, Sanat Kumar. And so Narada went and asked Sanat Kumar that, can you teach me how to achieve the ultimate knowledge? And um, Sanat Kumar said, well, I have to know what you already know so that I can decide what to teach and what not to teach. And Narada said, well, I know astronomy, I know mathematics, I know logic, I know history, grammar, and the fine arts. That tells us, that all these disciplines were considered to be sacred to achieve moksha. By that conclusion is not mine. I learned it from Vivekananda. He was the one who used this analogy. So through reasoning, you can achieve moksha, and that is central to Hinduism. And as I mentioned before, that through music, through dance, one can achieve moksha. And that's why, all these disciplines flourished in India.
Alokji, we will need to probably make a statement as to what exactly the word moksha referred to. Liberation, as I understand, from what? So that could be the indicator of subsequent discussion. What does moksha, in a literal way, we call it enlightenment or whichever way we want to put it, but what are they referring to? Are they referring to the state during the life? Are they referring to the state beyond the life? What is the reference there?
Oh, okay. First thing is, for moksha, you have to die first. So when they are talking about moksha, they are saying that, once you die, you will not be reborn again. And that's what they mean, that you are coming out of this cycle of birth and death. That means you are liberated. So liberation, basically means moksha. By the it's an interesting thing that how with time, terms change. If you read a literature, that is more than 100 years old, salvation was the common word used for moksha. But in the last 100 years, people are, trying to avoid that and using the word liberation. So salvation, liberation, nirvana, which is used by the Buddhists, they are all meaning moksha, and that means you are coming out of this cycle of birth and death, and your soul becomes a part of the divine being.
Let's keep in mind that there are so many, let's keep in mind that there are so many Indian sages, say from Buddha to even contemporary era like Ramana Maharshi, where it seemed they had moved along way before the end of the life. So the so-called Jivana Mukta, that while alive they were done. To me, the moksha is a liberation from our attachment to the body-mind, whether it happens at death or otherwise. Once it happens, you're not in the cycle of birth and death in any case because you have become a free bird. So I would rather have it while alive rather than while waiting till the death happens. That's how my understanding is, but I may be wrong. Let's see what the other people also have a suggestion.
Okay. Now, interesting that what you're saying is true, that to achieve that perfection, you have to get rid of all your attachment, including the attachment to your body. And that's what Buddha did. That's what perhaps, as you are mentioning, Raman Maharshi did. So yes, that is the case, but the end result of that is that you are not born again in your next life. And in Buddhism, that's central. That's by the concept of rebirth is quite common. And that's how actually, Dalai Lama is, born again and again, and they select the next Dalai Lama. Again, always considered to be the reincarnation.
From this is Dr. Sane from Minneapolis, so Arizona at this present time. Moksha comes from a Sanskrit root called much. Mucha means to set free, to release, to liberate. Because we human beings tend to live this life to get somewhere a comfort, where release from want, release something, for that we want something. So we tend to, as human beings, live a life of wants, want this, to find that release. So once we are released from any wants, any desires, then in this particular life, we are free of desires, free of any wants, and then you are free. And that comes about by recognizing what your true nature is. Yes, Kaivalya Upanishad says, na karmana, na prajaya dhanena, tyagena ekam amrutatvam anushuhu. Third verse from Kaivalya Upanishad. Not by actions, not by having children or retinue, not by wealth, but only by relinquishing the desires to get any more can you find it. And again, in the same Upanishad, he describes parena nakam nihitam guhayam vibhrajate yat yatayoho vishanti. So once you're able to recognize that that particular entity that you're trying to find does not stay somewhere else out there, not in the books, not in the forests, not anywhere else, but nihitam guhaya, right within yourself. When you go and connect yourself through deep contemplation, you connect yourself and recognize that you are none different than Brahman itself. So you recognize that you're Atman Tat Tvamasi. And that understanding as to your true nature, you are content. And once you are content, you're satisfied, you have no more desires. That state of desirelessness, that state of not wanting anything else, that state of comfort, happiness, and contentment, that is the moksha. And that moksha, whether you're alive or you're dead, it doesn't make difference. And the reason why you come back is because your life was not complete. Your desires were not complete. So you come back to complete those desires, complete those missions, complete those goals that you have not achieved in this particular life. As Shri Krishna says in 643, that you start from that particular point where you left off. The reason why you come back is because you have not finished your job. So what I'm trying to say is the effect of not being born is secondary to moksha, in the sense that because you have not completed your work, you're born. Once your life goal of understanding who you are and remaining in that state of comfort and contentment and knowledge, you don't have to come back. So that's a secondary effect. That's not the primary effect, as I understand it.
By Saniji has explained it well and articulated it beautifully, and I completely agree with him. It's a state of desirelessness that can lead to moksha.
Very interestingly, the sages have commented that the moksha or the desirelessness or the loss of attachment is a fragrance when one flowers in the understanding that he is not the puny body mind that he is thinking so far all along. He is much more different. It is not the current self that gets enlightened. The current self is totally distanced. Ownership is there, that it is there, but is as good as my computer, which I know I have the computer, but I may not have nothing to do tomorrow morning and I'm done with it. I close it and I'm done. So similarly, with a contemporary chattering body mind is understood through and through, either through jnana, either through devotion, either through all the other paths that are known. Once that is seen, what comes out is the so-called moksha. It's a fragrance. It is not to be achieved, but it happens when one reaches that platform. Otherwise, Raman Maharshi was so ordinary, he didn't do any penance. Buddha did a lot of penance, but he knew he became enlightened when he stopped all the penance. He realized the futility of it. So when you see the stories of all these teachers, and so ordinary a teacher like Kabir, who was a weaver, gets, as we consider it, enlightened, while the Newton and the Einsteins are still wobbling around, it shows that the mental capacity has nothing to do with it. It's a very different dialect. Suggestion is, while science is for the exploration of the outer world, of the physical world, the same exploration for the inner world needs different tools and methodology. The usual scientific tools will not work there. And that is why the reason for silence, that is why the reason for meditation and letting go of the chattering mind. Not that by itself you will get there, but that becomes a starting point for the inner journey, being able to see the stupidity of our own mind and our own selfishness and our own behaviors and our own incessant rut in the life. So I think that is where the direction goes. That is where the suggestion for starting at a smaller level and gradually progressing to further state.
I somewhat disagree with what you are saying. You don't have to go through this inner journey that you are talking about, to achieve moksha. It is one way, no question about it, but it is not the only way. When Einstein is saying about, the religious people, scientists are the most religious people, because you are understanding about the creation And through learning the creation, you are learning about the creator. You reach a state of, somebody is saying something? You reach a stage of, perfection. And that's what moksha is. And that's what, Vivekananda is talking about, and so the central theme of this is that through, or my lecture is, through science, you can achieve moksha. That's, a belief of, Hindu religion or Hindu scriptures.
I would add to, I think that I totally agree with that explanation, Alok, and I would add that I see it as being inherent in the concept that the world that we experience, the material world that we're a part of, is a manifestation of Brahman. Not different from Brahman, it's the manifestation of Brahman. So the more you engage in a searching way with that world, the more you are moving to a grasp of Brahman.
That I agree, completely agree. Yes. And that's the reason, by the way, I wanted this discussion, because I know people like Johnny and Dr. Sani, you can articulate it so effectively, perhaps better than me.
Dr. Alok, this is Jagdish.
Uh,
Can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Let's see your face too. Jagdish, let's see your face.
Oh, you see my face? Okay.
I know.
No,
Okay.
I'm driving, but I want to really
Oh, that's
listen to it. So
Then
I
don't
am.
put your face. That's fine.
Yeah. No, I want to ask a question because I really like the path of Karma Yoga. But how do I achieve moksha through Karma Yoga?
You reach a stage where you are happy with yourself, That's, the bottom line. That you keep doing it, like, it's explained in Gita, that, that you do your work without expecting any reward. And if you keep doing it, you reach a state of perfectness, and that's what moksha is. So if you become a very good scientist, if you are in science, that's a stage of perfection, and that's what moksha is. And you don't have to pray even for a day. You don't have to go to a temple even for a day.
I do go to the temple also, but no, thank you for that explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying it that going to temple is another way. But what I'm saying is that's not the only way. There are 4 different ways to achieve moksha. So if I'm talking about one, it does not mean that I'm denying the other one.
Okay.
I mean, of course, bhakti yoga is one way, and that's people who believe in bhakti yoga. They go to temple. That's perfectly legitimate. But that's not the only way in Hindu religion.
I look at it slightly differently, Alok Kumar.
Sure.
The
Please.
thing is, what you're talking about, Bhakti Marga, Jnana Marga, Yoga Marga, and Karma Marga. These are 4 methodologies to prepare the mind to get the knowledge as to your nature.
Mhm.
So these are the preparatory examinations. But that does not stop you from going through the arc of knowledge. So ultimately, everyone has to go through the arc of knowledge as to your own true nature. So even with your scientific knowledge, your mind has to be ready to go through that arc of knowledge, unless you have a sense of humility to recognize that whatever you achieved in your life is not simply your work. Other entities are contributing to that. Just read the 18th chapter. Panchamam Daivam. So basically, you're talking about the blessings of something else. Unless you have that sense of humility, it will be a problem. As a matter of fact, you referred to Narad Kumar, Narad coming to meet his brother. because he came to him because he was unhappy. He came here to learn from him. He was told, how do you find overcoming his sadness? So he arrives to his brother's place. He says, okay, Narada, my dear friend, my brother, what did you learn so far? And as you rightly described, he elaborated the number of entities and all degrees he had received from Banaras University, Haridwar universities, different universities. He rattled it out with pride. And what is Professor Sanat Kumar said? Oh, that means you haven't learned anything, have you? What he basically said is, you have not learned what Bhuya is. What gives you the ultimate happiness and contentment. That means the most important knowledge about yourself you haven't learned. I'm glad you are here. And then he continued to teach him. So all these methodology you beautifully described, Alok Kumarji. Whether you didn't describe Bhakta, which is fine. Karma Marga, trying to understand through the scientific fields. It takes you to a certain level, but does not give you the ultimate happiness and contentment. That only comes through understanding your true nature, that being nothing but Brahman. And that goes through the arc of knowledge. Nahi jnanena sadrusham pavitram ya vidyate. So you have to have the sense of humility in order to get that ultimate knowledge of your true nature. That's why I look at it.
Yeah, and by the way, I have I have no disagreement with you. I agree with you. And that's, I think, part of the reason, if I'm not wrong, in Gita it says that follow your own dharma. To me, that means is whatever path you choose, just follow that, but be sincere to that path, I agree with you,
Thank you.
and perhaps you are articulating it better than me. Yeah.
So let me ask a follow-up question to that. You have said many times, and I have had the same experience, that there is a difference between intellectual knowledge and a grasping of something because of an internal experience.
Mm-hmm.
And intellectual knowledge is not sufficient. That's book knowledge. You can go to school and repeat the text.
Thomas, yeah. Exactly. For that, you need certain stages through which you go, Johnny. I can explain to you, it's a long process to explain it. But basically, it requires a grace. It starts as Shastra Anugraha. That means the teacher recognizing that you're fully qualified, trained, have grasped the meanings and depth of all the scriptures that you're supposed to know. And for that, the guru, who is enlightened himself through the traditional teachers, starting with Shankaracharya, starting from Sadashiva Samarambhat, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmat Acharya Paryantam, Vande Gurum Paramparam. So that enlightened teacher recognizes that you have mastered the wisdom of humility, knowledge, all that through your understanding that you express through your thoughts, discussions, and practice. Having pleased that, he passes his anugraha to him. And that anugraha also represents anugraha from Deva anugraha because it comes directly Sadashiva. That leaves only to Deva anugraha, Guru anugraha, Shastra anugraha. Then comes the part of Atma anugraha. Having finished through 3 stages of understanding, the individual himself has to go through that process. Yajnavalkya basically talking about going through the process of Atma Anugraha. You have to go through the personal experience. That means to know and feel it and live it. For example, if you have to go through that process through personal careful studies further. Example, at this particular stage, the caterpillar is going to change, transform itself into a flying butterfly. In order that particular transformation to take place, that particular caterpillar has to go through a self-improvement process where the muscle masses of its entity are strong enough to experience it. Only when that particular individual is able to develop that after the blessing from the enlightened teacher, can he get out of the state of caterpillar and fly out as a butterfly, never to return back. So there are 4 different aspects of enlightenment. Starts with Guru Anugrah, Shastra Anugrah, Deva Anugrah, and ultimately Atma Anugrah. At that particular state, he or she is fully able to experience its own nature. And that goes through a process through when you go to deep meditation, you're able to go through that state of samadhi. You can connect yourself and come through that. You can talk about 6 different steps of samadhi, but this is not the time to talk about it. Thank you.
Yeah, namaste, Dr. Sani. I just like to namaste to everyone. I just like to, but very informative and very good presentation, Alokji. Just wanted to add on to what Johnny said is that unless it becomes experiential, just from understanding and the intellectual understanding, not gonna cut it. My personal story is that I grew up in that spiritual environment. Then I came to US in 1993 when I was 19 years old, and kind of went to a school in Iowa, immersed in a very, culture here that did not really follow through on sastric understanding that I had. And I kind of went and tried that out, and it's like, okay, what's here? That this country is a lot more developed than where I'm from. So they must be doing something. And but when you completely give away that spiritual aspect of things and completely immerse yourself in a material thing, you become you start becoming miserable as they go by. And then you kind of, and I kind of make a U-turn and V-turn to come back to my roots again. And then now my life is much more fulfilling, just experientially, in a practical day-to-day. If at work, if I don't get a promotion that I thought I deserve, doesn't give me as much of a grief as used to be. Kids don't listen to me sometimes, or their grades are not as great as I want. It gives me that aspect of, okay, I can see it. So the spirituality kind of gives you that. No matter how much money and all the wealth you have accumulated, cannot. So and also the aspect of a science kind of taking you and making you realize the have the self-realization. I have a little hard time believing that now because of that Higgs boson thing that went on for a while. And I remember one of the senators asking, like, are we going to see God through this particles, Higgs boson or whatever? And it was never possible because it's never experiential. You can see it, but you cannot justify it. So unless so, I just wanted to make that point, and it's a great informative debate too. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. By the when they are talking about this God particle, it's a when you are an insider, only then you are talking about for moksha experience, and that experience you can feel it only when you go through the process and not by reading a newspaper or a magazine. It is a very well accepted fact that one way to learn about the creator is to study his or her creation. And that's what we do in science. Not only in Hinduism, but even in Christianity. One of the best astronomical lab, is in Vatican and in Arizona. They are funding a lab in Arizona. Vatican is funding a lab in Arizona. So these, even in Christianity, astronomy is a sacred discipline, and the reason is because they believe that by learning about the creation, you can learn about the creator. And that's what we are doing, in science.
I have one question.
Mhm.
When Al-Biruni wrote about India, you have
Mhm.
read the books, I have not read the books.
Mhm.
So when he talked about Hinduism, because
Mhm.
Hindus were whoever lives on the west of, say, Sindhu
Mhm.
River, right? So did he differentiate between Buddhism and Hinduism, or he considered them one?
Oh, that's an interesting question. By the way, if you read the history of Buddhism, Lord Buddha said it repeatedly that don't start a new religion. However, at one time, it was considered that it's much better to divide people and create these not even two, but three, four religions. And that's what happened. So at the time of, Buddhism, sorry, at the time of El-Biruni, uh, Buddhism was not considered as a separate religion outside this, what we call the Sanatan Dharma. And that's part of the reason Al-Biruni did not talk about Buddhism as a separate religion. He did talk about Buddha, but he did not talk about the as a separate religion. Now, I think yeah, another thing I should mention, since you have mentioned about Al-Biruni. Al-Biruni has written again and again that Hindus are better scientists than the Arabs. They are Hindus have made better contributions than Islam. That's what he has written in his book, and he was a Muslim. And uh, basically a Muslim scholar praising Hinduism. And by the way, I don't want to compare two religions. That's not my intention. I'm just mentioning what Al-Biruni wrote.
Also, how can we, in a sense, the Islamic religiousness was like a warlord before I guess 6th or 8th century when Muhammad came in picture. Before that, there was nothing there. There was no organization, etc. And subsequently, also, what the primary intention was the fighting and expanding and so on and so forth. So to compare that with a civilization which has been there several thousand years with a very known scientist, it's not even worth comparing. They certainly borrowed a lot from here, but on the other hand, was that their innovation? That you can always question, right? I mean, their time and money was spent in expanding and controlling and so on and so forth. So it's a very different ballgame. But on the other hand, yes, they picked up well and they probably distributed it to Europe and so on and so forth. So that did happen.
That is true. And if you see the leading Islamic scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, Ibn Laban, Al-Uqlidisi, all these people, they became famous by writing books on Hindu science. The Al-Khwarizmi is considered to be perhaps the very best Islamic scientist, and he wrote three books for which he's quite famous. The titles of those books, two of the books, mentions Hindus, because he was basically sharing Hindu astronomy and Hindu mathematics. So that's the truth. And it did play a very important role, because these books became very popular in Europe, and that's how the Indian knowledge migrated to Europe. That's a knowledge, fairly well accepted in the history of science, but it is not a common knowledge as yet.
I can see that we have a lot to learn about all those Not only the books, but the histories and the anecdotes they are just unbelievable. So you need to start sharing this more often so that we can compile.
I would love to, like,
I have no intention of reading them all again, so I might as well listen to you and see what are the interesting
yeah.
points.
In Islamic world, after Quran, the most popular book in the Islamic world is Khalil wa Dimna. That's the title of the book, which is a translation of Panchatantra. The second most popular book in the Islamic
Really,
world is a
really,
translation
really.
of Panchatantra, and which is a very well accepted fact. I have written articles about it, but maybe it's not a very common knowledge.
Well,
To the question by Jagdish, I know he has left. My suggestion would be that sometimes the divisions between Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga are sort of arbitrary. I think each person is on his journey, and in the given stage of his life, one would be more predominant than the other, and he would move along as his heart tells. He should explode what comes in his heart to its fullest and give time for these things to work, because by now it has become so easier to be able to not only read the central message of the major speakers or sages, but also to visit extraordinary locations both in US and in India, where I think there is a spiritual flavor. So I think sincerely giving time for that while doing what he likes in Karma Yoga, that combination would help somebody grow much faster. You need the base, you need a little push from the other side for Karma Yoga also to work. So it's interesting to me that we divide it, but I'm not sure these divisions are genuine. Bhakti Yoga is a different flavor altogether. Either you have it or you don't have it. It's like loving a lady. Either you love or you don't. But on the other hand, Raja Yoga and Karma Yoga necessarily need to be together in parallel in understanding, because each one is going to enhance the other. Without understanding the mechanics of the life or centering oneself, it is hard to be Karma Yogi. And without experiencing karma and their direct influence, your jnana would be sort of lopsided too. So I think the both go together in a way. Bhakti flowers as person progresses on this side and realizes the vastness of what he is dealing with, then slowly the mind becomes subdued and acceptance of something higher power.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, even in my case, as a child, I mostly practiced Bhakti Yoga. You know, praying in the morning, praying in the evening, and you know, but later on, I became interested in Jnana Yoga. So you can switch from one to another. When in Hinduism, when they are suggesting these four yogas, they are saying each one is independent enough and good enough to achieve moksha, but it doesn't mean that you have to, if you are following one, then you have to exclude the others. No, you can combine these, and that's part of the reason in Gita it says follow your own dharma. I mean, you can design your own path and achieve moksha.
And one thing I'd like to ask question as we didn't discuss how important the role of nutrition and things that we intake in our body, because I used to be I'm still trying to be vegetarian. I'm not I don't have a courage enough to say I'm a full-time vegetarian, but I ate meat and all that. And then when you start really taking spirituality seriously and wanted to know what this is all about, I think what you eat, what you drink also matters. And I know, there's also research on science too, that meat eating or, intaking alcohol is bad for your body. That's a basic knowledge. But if you are a pursuant of spirituality, I think, what's your opinion on that? Is that, yeah.
Okay, all right. By the way, I'm one of those person who has written article about it, which are published in encyclopedia of vegetarianism. I have, first thing is, I hope you know that the number one cause of global warming is meat eating. I hope you understand that. So it's not transportation, it is meat eating, which is a established fact, by the way. There is no if and but about it. And it's about 450, if I'm not wrong, scientists chosen by the United Nations came up with that conclusion. So that's one bad thing. Second, for your health, it is, Dr. Parikh is gone, who is a heart expert, but it's a fairly well-known thing that vegetarian food, if eaten properly, is very good for health. Now, in Vaisheshika Sutra, they talk about, that your food intake influence your thought process. So they are suggesting to eat better. In fact, I do not know if you know Hindi language or not, but in Hindi language, when we describe a person, we say, oh, this person had good achar vichar. That means he eats well and he thinks well. So this is, what we eat, influences our thought process. There is it's written in our sacred books for a long time. So you are, by becoming vegetarian, you are protecting the environment. All the pollution issues that we have, a good many of these come from our eating habits. The food that we produce, a good amount of it goes to basically feed the animals that are slaughtered, later on. So my thought is vegetarianism is good for health, and and I should say that whatever I'm saying, I practice it. So I'm a vegetarian.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a bit more complexity, and Dr. Sane would I'm sure be more familiar with this than I am. But different people are different biochemically. And speaking from family experience, we were vegetarians for decades, no problems for me or for our two daughters. My wife, however, had a long history of declining energy and susceptibility to fatigue and all those kinds of things. And she finally went to see not a physician, but a naturopath who had a Native American background, who did a whole bunch of tests on her blood and in a very forceful way said, eat meat. And within weeks, my wife's energy returned. So in addition, there are multiple cultures around the world that are among the longest lived ones, the ones where average age, average lifespan is the highest. And they are not strictly vegetarian. They eat a certain amount of meat, but a limited amount of meat, and they do a great deal of physical activity. And the physical activity is as important, evidently, as the diet is. So there are, if you look only from the point of view of health, then there are multiple combinations that can work extremely well, and there are practices that are extremely damaging. And in part, it depends on the person. Different people just are built differently.
As a physician, this question, I'm a heart specialist, this question comes all the time. And medically speaking, I don't see any reason at all. Excess in any one or the other would hurt. So excess should be avoided. a reasonable combination of various stuff in the diet is very appropriate for day-to-day living and from the health point of view. When it comes to spiritual benefits in the diet, the suggestion is that yes, certain kinds of diet or inebriants like alcohol, etc., would make mind either too excited, too wacky, too running, and may not be as conducive to quietness of the mind. But let's keep in mind that sages like Ramakrishna Paramhans and Nisargadatta Maharaj both were non-vegetarian. So to tell that non-vegetarianism is not conducive to enlightenment, that is different. When person is not body-mind, what he has to do with enlightenment and so on and so forth. So it often drops off when person grows, and the enlightenment there would be of Buddha if the person is vegetarian, or a Mira, where love is a lot more visible. You could see that effect and flavor. But they are not essential. Both Ramakrishna Paramhans and Nisargadatta Maharaj, and both had, if you see their words, these are not ordinary people. So it would be unfair to say, because we are all cultural people, we are born in a certain environment, we are raised, and for some of us it drops off, as in my case, at some stage, and for some it persists. I wouldn't fight with it. It may drop off on its own once you become more heartful, and that is a lot more desirable if that happens. Medically necessity, as in John's case, is a different ballgame. I can imagine that situation. But I haven't seen many in my patients that medically the meat was necessary. But I can understand what his experience, I cannot deny.
Yeah, I agree. What we eat, it is influenced based on, our cultural preferences, but, it is an established fact that that's the number one cause of global warming,
Say Alok Sharma, if he was born in US, he would have been meat eating. I hope you realize that. Or in Japan, he would be fish eating. So
That's
we are
right.
all cultural people. We are
That's
born and
right.
raised in
That's
certain
right.
environment, and we get used to it.
Yeah.
And nothing right or wrong about it. And I understand the other components, which I respect it. There are
Yeah.
reasons, But of
Yeah.
all the things, what would appeal the most to me is your heartfulness and being willing to let animal have their life.
Yeah.
So that would be.
The way I understand, there are two medical books in India which are very popular. One is Charak Sahinta, another is the Shushruta Sahinta. In both, they have used medicine that are non-vegetarian.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that the way I understand, yes.
Hmm.
So, when we talk about food as medicine, then all the rules are broken.
Interesting.
I wouldn't make as a very, very important point in our own personal pursuit in this journey. It may be a relevant point, but I wouldn't bang on that and hurt the children and others and look down that this is not right. Each has his own way, and the needs could be different of different individuals, as John very rightly said.
Yeah.
But wonderful, Alokji. I think you did a great job there, and I'm looking forward to having you in Raleigh next time. I'll speak to Kishorji here.
Sure. Thank you.
I think one more thing about vegetarianism versus non-vegetarianism is, I think I read somewhere that the what is called feed conversion ratio is 8:1. That means you have to feed 8 pounds of grain to a cow, for example, to get 1 pound of beef, which is kind of if you 8 pounds of grain, you can feed perhaps 8 people or 10 people, but 1 pound of beef that it will generate, you can hardly feed 2 or 3 people. So that's one thing that goes in favor of vegetarianism.
These are the economics of it, rather than
economics. Yes.
The economics of it. Yes. I'm sure that the beef are fed more often on the grass, which humans are not going to eat in any case. But yes, there could be grains too. I'm not very familiar with their feeding patterns. Wonderful. It seems there are no
Thank you.
But I think the
questions.
welfare of planet is important. So one thing we will all agree, whether whether we should become vegetarian or not. I think all of you will agree that we should reduce our meat consumption. That's step number one, because it's hurting the planet.
For sure.
I think that's where this 8-to-1 feed conversion ratio comes into the picture.
Mhm.
I see a surprising
Yeah.
move in many countries when I travel. I was in
Yeah.
Colombia, Peru. The amount of vegan, vegetarian diet and restaurant available is increasing, ever increasing. A lot of people in various countries are moving in that direction to some extent from their own will. Nobody obviously is forcing nobody. So it's very interesting in a sense that it is becoming a little more common in any case.
Maybe science can do more research on that non-meat burgers and the things that they are producing now. Probably that is the
Yeah.
future.
I have one question. Is science, when we say we believe in science, is science becoming a new religion? Because when you start believing in something just because it's popular or it's cool, because that's what is taught in our school nowadays. So is it becoming more like a religion that, and then in the name of science, so many studies, like one says this, another says this. Sometimes they say drink a lot of water, drink 1 gallon of water a day, and then another says, oh, you're hurting your kidney. So many different things come, but so it's becoming. So is it becoming a religion? That's the question.
And the
Yeah,
question
you have
to
asked
you is, what is religion?
several questions here. And let me try to, answer all this if I can remember. One is, what is religion basically? Well, different societies, they, tried to compile rules that were in their welfare and made, defined certain codes, and that's how the different religion evolved. So when we are talking about religion, that means basically things that are for our welfare. Now, as a human being, we like to have materialistic prosperity. And the way to achieve that materialistic prosperity is through science. The reason science is so powerful and has so much of influence, in the modern world is because it has worked. And that's, a truth, there is no question about it. Now, since it is important for us, it is important for our security, it is important for our prosperity, we have a lot of respect because it has delivered, in our history. So, in a sense, maybe, for some, it has a new, religion, perhaps. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was such a delight to
Thank you.
hear.
Wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you.
And
Thank